bit more professional, yeah? In the new house. Hi my lovelies, it's Rebecca Rogers. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy you're here. I know it's a little echoey, I'm so sorry. I'm still in the middle of moving and don't have everything in here yet. It will be better next week, I promise. But last week I had to postpone Bad Apple because of moving and y'all lost your marbles. I couldn't do that to you guys again. If you've never joined us before, on Am I the Bad Apple, people send in submissions where they're not sure if they acted appropriately or not. They tell us the story, we read it together, I give my opinion, you give me yours. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, but that's life. Vixie, would you like to be a Bad Apple guest? You've never joined us before. We usually only see Milo. Hello. She doesn't usually like to be held, not on her terms. But anyways, let's get started with this week's episode of Am I the Bad Apple? Let's go apple picking. I got up to get something and she took my chair. Because I'm in the middle of moving and going crazy with moving, it can only eat, think, sleep, dream, moving. We're gonna make today's theme moving. New houses, new beginnings, people moving in, people moving out. Let's do it. Apple number 1. Am I the bad apple for refusing to give my fiance an ego boost? My fiance, 37 female, and I, 33 female, got engaged a few months ago. We're getting married soon and invitations have already been set out. Right now, we're focusing on the smaller details. We've also been busy moving into our new home that we purchased together. We used 70% of my savings and 30% of his. I have to say that saving up for this house took most of my savings and prevented me from enjoying the things that I love spending money on. My fiance sat me down yesterday to talk about his groom speech. We talked about a few points, but what made me upset was that he asked if it would be okay if he mentioned the house we bought and say that he was the one who bought it. I was a little taken aback. I asked why, and he said,
"It's just a confidence boost during the speech, and that's it."
I said, I didn't feel comfortable with the idea because I think it's unfair to not acknowledge the fact that I sacrificed so much to be able to buy this house. I reminded him how much I contributed and he said that it doesn't change that it's our house, so it shouldn't matter to me if he says that he bought it himself or we both did. I refused. Then people will always think that the house was bought by him, which is something that will never change no matter how hard I try to prove that I contributed 70%. He got mad at me and he said that I was overthinking the whole thing and making a big deal out of it. We got into an argument and he started yelling, saying that it's just one favor that he's asking me to do and I'm making this ridiculous small request my hill to die on. He's basically sulking now and he's refusing to answer any of my calls, so he's basically started this silent treatment till I cave in. So am I the bad apple for making this my hill to die on? My question is, why does it hurt his ego that his fiance contributed so much to the house? This is my issue, okay? The whole like, oh, it's an ego boost because it looks like I have so much money. Don't you think being a generous man or a loving husband or a loyal partner, like, aren't those better things to be able to brag about? Isn't humility a much better feature? You know what would be like such a brag? Is to show off your wife and talk about the sacrifices she made to get this house, right? That would be an awesome groom speech. I, as a wedding guest, would be so much more interested in seeing the groom talk about how amazing his wife is and the amazing things she's done to contribute to their family, rather than the groom talking about how great he is. Anybody else? Am I alone here? Because that's my opinion. To me, it looks like she probably makes more money than him, and this is to me appearing like a man who can't cope with that. And that is sad. I make more money than my husband. And mind you, my husband went and got a whole Juris Doctorate, okay? He's a whole attorney. He's so proud of me, okay? Avery is so proud of me and he loves boosting me up and talking about how hard that I work, and like, he's an attorney. That is a very successful profession, but he will boost me up any chance he gets, and that is a man who is confident in his own skin, okay? Confident in his skin, in his relationship, in his life. That is something to admire, okay? I don't think this girl's the bad apple. I don't think it's wrong to be offended that her fiance wants to not only diminish her accomplishments, but act like they're all his. Why? That is messed up. Why is it such an ego boost to say, I did this by myself, instead of we did this together? Like, that's so much healthier, and to me, that's so much more of a better brag. But maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I mean, this new house, I would never go around telling people I did it all by myself. That's gross. No. Avery and I worked very hard and we bought this house, and it is what it is. This is our house that we purchased with our money. It doesn't matter who contributed what. This is our house. I don't know if you can hear my belly rumbling. I forgot to eat breakfast this morning. In the meantime, we're gonna have some tea. I got a new tea mug. I don't know if you can see it, but it's Harry Potter. I guess it's technically a Marauder's error, but it's fine. Non-Draco Talk people wouldn't understand if I just said Marauder's era. Apple number 2. Am I the bad apple for refusing to help my stepsister? I'm a 29 female. When I was about 10, my mom married my stepfather. I have an older brother, Luke, who was 15 at the time, and my stepfather had Amy and Ada, who were 12 and 11. We didn't come from a privileged background. My mom was a minimum wage worker, and my dad was absent. Our stepfather had a really nice income. Their deal was that they wouldn't combine finances and that they would each contribute equally to their household. Then they would each take care of their own children with their spare money. My mom didn't have anything extra for us, and my stepdad was able to spend big on his kids. This included holidays, which Luke and I were excluded from. Our stepfather would buy presents for our mom, but never for us. Luke and I also shared a room, even though Amy and Ada each had their own rooms, and we had a guest room. My stepfather insisted that because he was paying more towards the house, so my mom's share would only get her one room for both our kids. Luke and I were constantly teased growing up by our step-siblings. My mom always said we should be thankful, because if it wasn't for our stepdad, we wouldn't be living in such a nice home in a good neighborhood. Yeah. Anyways, Luke and I became determined to be able to take care of ourselves, that we wouldn't need to take that kind of nonsense from anyone ever again. We've both done really well with our careers and our finances, and we're in a really good place. Since I turned 18, I moved out, and my relationship with my step family has been very limited. I wouldn't call us friends, but we're friendly with each other when we're in the same place. I visited my mom recently, and my stepfather mentioned that Amy wants to buy a house now that she's pregnant. He asked me if I'm able to help out a little with the deposit. The house is $5,000 and she needs $150,000 for the deposit. She has $100,000 so far, $25K on her own, $25K from her mom, and $50K from our stepfather. He actually asked if Luke and I can help cover the extra $50K and that he'd pay us back as a part of our inheritance eventually. No, absolutely not. He insisted that Luke and I both own houses outright, and with our incomes, we should be able to help. I said, look, whether we can help or not is irrelevant. My answer is no. He reminded me that Luke and I each gave $10,000 to our cousin for buying a house as a gift, and Amy's my sister. He's offering to pay us back eventually. I said that was our choice then, and this is my choice now. He insisted that we should be willing to help family if we're able to, and I replied back, oh, like how you helped me and Luke when we were kids? Everyone just went quiet after I said that. After a long silence, my stepfather said that if he could go back in time, he would have done everything so differently, and he would have treated us four equally. I said, that's good and well, but that doesn't change the experience I had as a kid, and it definitely doesn't make you entitled to my money now. He said he knows he's not entitled, but that's why he's asking and promising to pay it back. I said the answer's no, he's not entitled to a loan from me either. My mom told me later that I could have turned him down without being a jerk or bringing up my childhood, which he already feels guilty about. But I think he pushed me. I didn't know how else to tell him no that he would understand. So, am I the bad apple? No. I know I've probably said this in a previous video. My whole philosophy is just because someone shares blood with you, or not even blood, they're not even blood related, just because someone's family does not mean that they're able to use and abuse you. That does not excuse those things. And I know that this is kind of a different situation. Like, I always say I don't have kids, I I've never been in a step family kind of situation. How they handle their finances is their business. But another thing that I always say is that actions have consequences. You can do whatever you want, but your choices will have consequences, whether they're good consequences or bad consequences. I know consequences, the word always has some negative connotation, but there can be good consequences. One consequence is the way that this girl was raised, how she was treated financially and had things withheld from her. A good consequence is she made sure that she could take care of herself and anyone else she wanted to take care of when she got older. That's a great consequence. A negative consequence is she does not have a good relationship with her stepdad or her stepsisters. That's a negative consequence of her childhood. Another negative consequence is she doesn't feel like she should or wants to help her stepfamily. And she's entitled to that. That's a consequence that occurred based off of how the stepdad wanted to do the finances. He's entitled to do whatever he wants with his money, but this is what happened as a result. Again, I'm a strong believer that just because someone's related to you or their family or whatever does not mean that you owe them anything. Now, obviously it would be nice, but you don't have to. And I also want to make it clear, something that I say often is just because I think someone has a right to do or say something doesn't necessarily mean that I would have acted the same in the situation. Now, $50,000 is a lot of money. Even splitting it between her and her brother, $25,000 is a lot of money. I don't know if I would have done that either. Not for someone who teased me while growing up. I don't know. The way that social media has really blessed my family, I might feel like I needed to good karma, but if it wasn't for social media, absolutely not. But that doesn't mean that she's entitled to do that, She doesn't want to. She's able, but she doesn't want to, and that's okay. I don't think she was a jerk for saying no to helping her stepsister, and I don't think she was no for really giving her reason as to why. Stepdad kept pushing. He wasn't taking no for an answer. She said no, and this is why no, and that's that. I know it didn't make him feel good, but the way that he did finances didn't make her feel good, and that's life sometimes. Our choices don't always make people feel good. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are like, no, family's family, you help family, and while I agree that I do act in that way, I have been able to develop boundaries of, yes, they are family, but they can't talk to me that way. Yes, they are family, but that doesn't mean they can X, Y, Z. And I think those are important. I think those really matter. Apple number 3. Am I the bad apple for tricking my mother-in-law? My mother-in-law moved in with us about a month ago. I began to notice my stuff in the bedroom being touched, just furniture rearranged, stuff moved, etc., etc. I felt like I was going crazy because my husband's the only one who has access to the bedroom and he doesn't usually touch or go near my things. I figured it must just be his mom walking in and snooping on my personal things. I told my husband and he said, my mother would never. I definitely knew she was snooping through my things, but it's not like I could just install a bedroom camera and catch her in the act. So I got me one of those fake positive pregnancy tests and threw it in my bedroom's trash can. Just to note, this trash can was placed in the back corner of my bedroom near the back of the closet. Literally the next day after I got to work, I had tons of calls and texts from my in-laws congratulating me for my pregnancy. My husband came over to my workplace so upset, asking, since when were you pregnant and why didn't you tell me? I asked how he found out and he just said that his mom found the positive test in the trash can in our bedroom. I said, oh, so does that confirm that she has been snooping in the bedroom all along? He kind of had a aha moment, but then demanded that we stick to the bigger issue. I said there's no bigger issue because the positive pregnancy test was fake and this whole thing was just to expose my mother-in-law's snooping. He wasn't convinced. He had me take an actual pregnancy test right in front of him and he was livid, asking how I could lie about such a thing and break his mom's heart since I know very well that she wants grandkids. I got a lot of crap over this from him, from her, from the rest of the family, now calling me a liar and a manipulator. I don't understand how I'm the bad guy here, but maybe there's something that they see I don't. Am I the bad apple? There are so many red flags here. First of all, your mother-in-law is going through your things and your husband doesn't think it's important to make sure she understands boundaries? Boundaries are important. Why is he so against her having boundaries of don't go through my wife's things? That's red flag number 1. Red flag number 2, your mother-in-law found this pregnancy test, knew you didn't tell anyone, because like she didn't know, and went and told everyone, as if it was her announcement to make. If you were actually pregnant, she would have then taken away from you the opportunity to tell your husband that you were pregnant, to tell the family that you were pregnant. Like, she took that away from you. And I know that this was a fake situation, but she didn't know that. And she still took it upon herself to give everyone your announcement. That's a really big announcement to make, and she took that. That's a really big problem. Red flag 3 is that you told your husband, oh no, this was fake, and he not only didn't believe you, but he made you take a pregnancy test in front of him. What kind of manipulator, micromanager, like that's gross. That is gross behavior. Number 4 is him scolding you about hurting your mother-in-law's feelings because she wants grandkids. But it's okay for your mother-in-law to hurt your feelings by going through all of your things. And last but not least, we have the family who has decided that you playing a prank is pretty much what you did. You playing a prank was a bigger deal than your mother-in-law stealing your announcement, going through your things, like airing your news. What? Girl, run. I think that your husband needs some therapy. I think that your husband really needs to sit down and chat with you about all of this, and if he's not willing, it'll be a whole lot easier for mother-in-law to snoop if your stuff's not there. That feels very unhealthy and very toxic. I don't like that for you, and you're not in any way, shape, or form a bad apple. And I think even one of the red flags that I missed is that you said my stuff's being moved, someone's snooping, and he's like, no, my mom would never. Why would he not believe you? Why would he not hear you out? So I think that you should give him a chance to hear you out again about the issues that had just occurred. I think that if he's not willing to hear you out about why everything that just occurred was so toxic, you tell him, Milo, you might need to look into what he said. Good apple in my book. Does anyone have any other thoughts? Like, has anyone else had a snooping mother-in-law, or have you had a family member do this kind of, I don't want to call it a prank because I don't think it's a prank, especially with so many infertility issues out there. I don't think that's a funny prank to pull, but I know people still do, unfortunately. Has anyone had experience with something like that? Have you had a family member do that, or have you had a similar experience? I would love to hear how you handled it, what happened for you guys. Let us know in the comments. We've had 3 good apples. Are we gonna do all good apples this episode? Every time I say that, something happens and it's like the worst story I've ever heard, and I'm like, oh no, so I feel like I'm just jinxing it. It's fine. Am I the bad apple for putting my roommates in a crappy situation? I own and have a massive mortgage on a house in a really expensive city, and I have 4 roommates. I have the basement suite, and the upstairs is rented to 1 couple and 2 single people. They know I own the house, and all of them were recommended to me by friends or family. Just to be safe, I still require a lease agreement, security deposit, as well as first and last month's rent. I just was willing to rent to them below market rate because I didn't have to advertise or arrange a property manager or anything like that. So it's a really sweet deal. Between the 4 of them, I collect enough to cover mortgage and utilities with a little bit left over. I just save that money and use it to pay for major repairs and maintenance. I just accepted a job in a different city, so I'll be moving in the new year. I knew about this back in October. I offered the couple to take an opportunity and take over the basement suite in the new year just for a little bit more money because it has a lot more space. They would get a massive bedroom upgrade, a private living room, a bathroom, a kitchen. They agreed and let me know that they're planning on moving in a year, so they'll be signing for the downstairs suite for a 1-year lease. I asked the 2 singles if any of them wanted to take the master bedroom because it would be empty because the couple's moving downstairs. They both declined, but asked if they could turn it into a home office for the 2 of them. I said sure, but they would definitely have to cover rent for the room. They said that I was being unreasonable. Since I'm gonna be making more money off the couple, they think that I should just keep the rent the same and let them have the room for free. I even offered it to them for 80% of what I was getting before. They called me a selfish jerk for taking all their money. Even if they took the deal and paid extra, they would still be paying way less than market value for a single room in our city. It turned into a huge fight, with the people who referred them to me calling me a greedy jerk for trying to suck money out of their friends. I don't need to deal with any of this. I found a property investor who was willing to buy my house and honor all my current leases, including the new one for the couple. Unfortunately for the other two renters, their leases are up in February, and I imagine that their rents are going to be going up a fair bit. That's not my problem anymore. So now everyone is angry with me because these two singles will most likely have to move into a much crappier living situation. I feel bad because if I wasn't moving, I would have stayed and dealt with it, but it's just easier to walk away from all this. So, am I the bad apple? Okay, I'm gonna preface this with, I totally understand that there are a lot of people who have very specific feelings when it comes to landlords and people who rent out rooms and houses and townhouses and things like that. I get it. You are entitled to your opinion, and that's fine, but at the end of the day, this is the situation. Not everyone is going to agree, and that's okay. So the bottom line for me, these roommates were renting a room and asked for an additional room for free. I've never rented in like a house with that kind of shared space before, but I'm assuming when you rent, you have your room and then you have common spaces like the living room, the kitchen, laundry, things like that. Hello. And they wanted an additional room that was not a common space, and they wanted it for free. At the end of the day, this house is a business for the landlord, landlady, whoever it is. When I go to a hotel and if it has like a little conjoined door, you know what I'm talking about, and I say, oh, I don't think you have anyone in there, so will you just go ahead and unlock it for me and I'll just use both rooms? Like, no, it doesn't work that way. You pay for the space that you use. And regardless of your opinion on the idea of renting houses from landlords and things like that, I think it's still fair for you to understand that, like, especially with the hotel analogy, it doesn't work that way. It's still a business. Now, I do think that the way that the landlord went about that conversation would be really important, because I was reading some of the comments, In the comments, the landlord admitted that when they talked to the other two tenants, that they mentioned, oh, well, I can't just leave your rent the way that it is because I will have an additional mortgage when I move, so yeah, you'll have to pay extra for the room. That, I think, was a mistake, okay? That, I think, was definitely a mistake to go about it that way. No one wants to feel like they have to pay more for their landlord to live luxuriously, right? Like, we don't want to pay more for the landlord to go and do extra things. Like, that's not why. But saying, oh, you're going to be occupying more space, you have to pay for that extra space, it's really the same kind of reasoning, but psychologically it hits different, I feel like it would have went a lot smoother if that's how the landlord approached it in the first place. Because again, that makes sense. Like with the hotel analogy, if you take up more space, you pay for that space. Whether it's at a hotel or I go to one of those like rent a space for an office, whatever, or a storage utility or whatever, you rent space, and the more space you take up, you pay for that. I definitely don't think the landlord is a bad apple. I'm kind of teetering between crab and good apple just because of the way in the comments that he said he went about it, of saying, oh, I can't keep your rent the same because I'm gonna have my own rent over there. Well, that has nothing to do with the tenants. That has nothing to do with, that shouldn't have anything to do with what they had to pay. And I totally understand that she meant, oh, because you're gonna be having more space. Like, we know what she meant, but psychologically, again, it hits different, But that's not what they're asking. They're asking, hey, I didn't want to deal with it. It was too much drama, so I sold the house so that someone else can deal with it, and it is what it is, not my problem anymore. That's why I have to go with good apple. Something that I've learned, especially since starting social media, is that other people 9 times out of 10 are not going to be looking out for you. And when it comes to your mental health, your finances, your whatever, you have to look out for yourself. And as much as I want the world to be this big happy place where everyone is worried about everybody, that's just not reality, unfortunately. And it took me a long time to come to that conclusion and to really understand that. I was taken advantage of a lot in teaching in the social media world. And that's why, this person was like, hey, I had this business it was causing me too much stress. I know it's not the most ideal situation for them, but like I can't do it anymore, and they had to take care of themselves. And as much as it sucked for them, they were getting rent under market value. They had a pretty sweet deal. They were being offered an additional space, not only again under market value, but at 80% split between two people of what she was getting before, which again was under market value. Like, in my opinion, it sounded like they had a pretty sweet deal and they got a little greedy. They assumed that they were just gonna get it because they're friends with the landlord's friends. You know, that's how you get taken advantage of, and land person didn't want to deal with it and just wash their hands of it. I think if they were a little bit more conscious of the sweet deal that they had, I don't think it would have been a problem. I think that this person would have kept the house, moved out, they would have had their space, they would have been able to do whatever they wanted. Something else that I've learned is that sometimes when you do people favors, they come to expect those favors, and the moment you say no or put your foot down or need to do something for you, it becomes a problem and you're selfish, and that's toxic. I don't blame this person for wanting to wash their hands of it and not worry about it anymore. Again, life lessons, sometimes you have to put yourself first. Which means we have all good apples today! If you want to send your own stories to be featured on Am I the Bad Apple, you can do so at my subreddit, r/AmITheBadApple, and I cannot believe how successful that subreddit is getting. Holy moly, y'all. We are in the top 5% on subreddits on Reddit, and I'm speechless. Thank you. Reddit even sent me a package. Not gonna lie, when I first saw a package from Reddit, I was a little nervous, but there was some really cool stuff in there, including a snail. There have been some requests to name him George, and other requests to name him after a type of apple. Let me know what you guys think. So I'm still playing around with setup things. I still have to set up like the sound bags. I want to know what you think. Like, do we still need lights in the background? I want to be able to start having people come on Bad Apple with me, not just Fixie. So should I have Avery do Bad Apple with me next week? Should we add lights? Let me know what you think. Do we need decorations? My tummy is still rumbling. I really need to go get something to eat. So I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining me in my new house. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, my love.